Hey boys, how we doing?
Boys.
so
Legends. I still got a mouthful of Pop Tarts. I'm taking our photo. Oh.
if anyone has seen the thumbnail, MG's holding up a Pop Tart.
Mm.
What flavor you got there?
Cookies and cream. We spoke about it last week just before we went on last week's episode. Remember? We are talking about how I'm struggling to get food down. And you
Yeah,
suggested Pop Tarts.
yeah, yeah,
Obviously I know what they are, but I've never really had one.
yeah.
So of course you mentioned it. I'm in the shops, I walk past them, they're fresh in my brain. I'm like, yeah, I'll grab a pack.
There's so many flavors now.
There's heaps. Macros are
So many.
reasonably easy. So I'm like, how am I going to incorporate it? So I've got a couple. I do mix them with yogurt,
Mm,
heated, and then I did do one the other night with low fat ice cream too.
yeah. So do you eat them dry or do you toast them?
I've been doing both, man. Like obviously the ones
Yeah,
that I'm eating right now are just dry straight out of the packet,
yeah.
but I would say the majority I've been toasting.
Because when you toast them, they just get soft and gooey in the inside.
Yeah, and like I think they're like 2 grams of protein, four and a half of fat, and about 36 carb.
Carb, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, 20
So
carbs and they're pretty good.
less than 10 grams of fat if you have two.
And I
Um,
think on the packet it says, is it nine vitamins and minerals?
no, I didn't even did it. Does it really say that?
So
I wonder what the health star rating is. It's probably like a five. Probably like a five, I reckon.
actually, talking about heating stuff up, do you ever heat up protein bars in the microwave?
I just don't,
Like just
I
to
have in
get
the
it
past for
softer.
sure. I have in the past. I just haven't eaten one for ages, man. Like
Yeah.
it's like the last thing you ever want to eat
Someone gave me
off
one the other
season.
day, and I'm not like I don't like protein bars either, but someone gave me one, and I was like, I'm gonna put this in the microwave for 10 seconds,
Yeah.
and it just gooeyed it up. So when you you don't break it, it actually you pull it apart.
Yeah.
Yeah, tastes pretty good. Scotty, you missed out on Friday night, bro. You missed
Bro.
out. It was the biggest, it was the best crew. We had 11 of us go, right? We all rocked up, went to Suvo's, and afterwards we went to Mamalina's, had a coffee and a cremosito. Um, but Michael's favorite was there, Sophia, which is
Yeah.
my best mate's daughter. She's only 4 months old.
Yeah, I saw that.
So you could imagine 11 guys,
And a bunch of us bodybuilders too. So
yeah,
this is where it's
with
even funnier.
with a half Asian looking baby.
Just one that was literally we're passing around the table all night. Like so,
We're just
that's
passing
so
around the
good.
table, babysitting her. The people they're coming up. They're like, whose kid is
You know how
this?
many Instagram messages I got like, oh, congratulations. Like, oh man.
Oh,
I don't
she's so
know.
cute though.
She's so
She's so cute and so well behaved. Yeah.
yes.
So you missed out, Scotty. You got to come next time.
Yeah, well, are we getting a Suv on Friday?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of
Yeah, I
course.
just couldn't make last Friday. I told you boys what I told you boys why I had a
Yeah, yeah,
few
yeah.
I couldn't get out of, but I'm having withdrawals. It's been a couple of weeks since my last Suv.
I
I
know.
know, man,
Yeah.
you're missing out. I
And
think
you
we
haven't
might have
been
a
to
few
this
extra
place
this week
because
too.
now we've confirmed that it's gluten free.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're
so
in.
they're 100% everything's.
Everything's gluten free. You just they just don't have the actual pitas, but
Yeah,
all their meats and their sauces are all gluten
yeah,
free.
yeah,
So
Matt. I'll just bring it right.
yeah, awesome, man.
I'm looking forward to it. You guys have hyped this up, so hopefully it's good.
Jimbo,
Yeah.
you want to tell everyone where we'll be?
So it's D Suvalaki, Hood Street, Airport West. It used to be a Suvalaki van that was like, on the side of the road on the street somewhere. But then because they got so popular, they decided to move it into a factory and then fit the factory out around it. So the van is actually sitting in the factory, right? In the middle of the factory. But then they've built like a fridge next to it that has, and like a little bar that has all the alcohol. And it has on the other side of it, it has like built like a little cafe with a coffee machine, and then there's all tables and chairs, and then yeah, it's awesome. It's like so they just plonk the plonk the van inside the factory, but they built everything around it. It's pretty cool. It gets very busy too. So yeah, it's gonna be awesome, bro.
I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be the highlight of my week.
Yeah, I know you know this, but I signed up at a gym, so
Hmm.
I haven't had a gym membership since the start of COVID. Pretty much during COVID, set up a home gym, and I've been training there ever since. Through the prep, like everything was all training at a home gym, and it was fine, and it done me well, and I enjoyed it. But and I've been really picky about signing up at a gym because I've just been so comfortable at home. It's been great, and yeah, that gym opened up It's been a while. It's been open for maybe about a year, I think, and tested it out a couple of times, and it's close to home, and I love it. So it's got brand new equipment. That's the first time I've gone to a gym, tried a hip thrust machine, and I'm actually like, this is pretty good.
So you rate the Matrix piece?
The Matrix hip thrust machine is good, and I'll tell you why. Because the pad that goes on your hips, you can actually move it away from you or towards you, right? Where normally they're fixed. So as you're thrusting up, when with the bar path, you thrust up, it's not straight up and down. It comes back a little bit, and you're able to maneuver it on your hips. This pad does that. You can move it towards you or away from you. So, and the foot pad's really, really big. The back pad is big, and it's like on an angle, so you can choose how far up and down you want to be on it. I was pretty impressed. With it, to be honest. But yeah, the whole gym is set up with Matrix equipment.
What did you think of the pin loaded stuff?
The pin loaded stuff's good. It counts the reps for you, and it counts the time.
Yeah.
So
they've got two different ranges in there. They've got their top tier platinum range and their next one down, which is still awesome. But they've got a mixed bunch of pieces there. When I went out there with the Corey, the Matrix rep, just to have a look at some of their stuff, I was really impressed. It's amazing. Even their multi-station, it's huge near the cardio area.
That's one thing I love, and I always ask clients when they go to the gym, tell me if they're multi-stations. Like we're talking about where it has the cable crossover, and then it has a seated row on one side, a lat pull down on the other side. I always ask, is it double cables, right? So double cables where you pull from. All the whole station, because it's a double station, it's got it's all double cable. It's amazing, right? It's awesome. I love it. And they have. And I tried this the other day, the fixed tricep cable where you put your back up against the pad and
almost a bit old school, man.
above your head, right? I haven't done that in years. I was like,
that's what I said, old school.
I could hardly lift much. It was crazy.
Yeah, it's good. No, it's a phenomenal gym, man. They got some great pieces.
Yeah, and I was really wary about the hack squat because I'm really fussy with hack squats. And it was good, man. Like you can get really good depth. Full position's great. I was like, this is I'm enjoying this. So yeah, it's good. So this week's my first full week there. I'm gonna do all my sessions there. So I'm looking forward to NRG Gym in Essendon.
The only thing I don't know whether you've noticed in their racks, just their pull-ups, the pull-up bars in the racks. Have you noticed how thick the handles are?
But like the lat pull down bars and stuff.
No. So they're in their squat racks. You know how they have all the racks on the side.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, so the handles for pull-ups, they're gigantic. They're really, really thick.
I haven't noticed, but I'll
check that out. I know that was one of the things that I had a look at because I was comparing them to Iron Edge to Hammer.
Yeah.
But no, it's a beautiful gym. Really clean, neat, immaculate.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's really, really good. And then also on the weekend there was a posing workshop, ICN posing workshop that Donna ran on the Sunday. Taylor's Lakes at Peak Fitness, which was cool. The gym wasn't massive. It had some really good, like weird pieces. I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. Like you would never expect a piece of equipment in there like that. But they had a lot of recovery stuff. They had sauna, cold plunge, and an altitude room. They had some different cool stuff, but it was good. I think one thing that Donna did in that class, which I said to her, that was really good that you did that, is they had someone that actually was dressed like a competitor, like full spray tanned her, did the hair and makeup. She had her bikini on, like as if she was about to jump on stage. It was great because first timers had a look to see what a competitor actually looks like, which was great. But what she did, which I think was really good, is she actually got that competitor, to be in front of the class. And then Donna went through the poses and explained the reasons why you put your leg this way, what angle, why you're trying to create taper, what you're trying to do. And I thought it was really good because some people just pose, but they don't really know why their foot's got to be there, why they should be on an angle, what's the illusion you're trying to create. And for her to explain that, I think was invaluable. So that was one really, really good thing that I liked about the session. There was no other real coaches there, but I always recommend that if a coach is free and available and can, to go to workshops for sure.
Were there boys as well, or just the girls?
The boys were after the girls, and I saw a little bit of it, and the guys are pretty good. I think the class was half the size. It was about 12 or 15 guys, whereas the girls was, I think, about 30. It was close to 30.
It's pretty normal, right? The guys never show up like the girls.
Yeah, of course. But Yeah, it was decent. It was a decent turnout. I'm excited. So the rookie show's coming up. That's the first one. Are all you boys going to it?
No, I won't be. I'm going to be in Queensland.
That's right, you're in Queensland. I think we spoke about this, but for all the shows that we go to and attend, which would be most of them, I'm thinking that maybe we do like a review of the show after the show's done. So during our potty, we can kind of talk about the show, maybe talk about the overall winners, and maybe special mentions of people that we saw on stage that thought we looked really good.
Yeah, I reckon that's a great idea, man.
Yeah, you think it's a good idea?
I think people would love to hear us do that as well.
Mm.
I think people would
Yep.
love to hear us do that and just talk about the decisions as well as just like what ran like really well on the day. But yeah, I try and plan to go to pretty much every show this season for season 8 for sure.
Yeah, yeah, I'd be keen to. We don't have anyone. I don't have anyone competing there. Do you have anyone competing there, Mick?
Yeah, I got one. I got two actually. Well, I got two within my team of coaches.
Okay, cool. Yeah, sweet. So it'd be good because I'd like to have a look at the competition, the lineups, and then come back on the potty and give some feedback to everyone and see what everyone thinks.
Yeah.
Do you reckon, do we have any idea on the numbers? I feel like there's a lot of people that started out thinking they were going to do the rookies and they're like, well, maybe I'm not quite ready. And so now it's looking like they're going to do their first show at the Melbourne.
Yeah, it's hard to know, man, just because it is so much earlier than the rest.
It's a funky time, isn't it?
It's so much earlier than the rest. And I think a lot of people would have had that mindset is like, all right, let's target that. But if we didn't end up doing it, it's not the end of the world because you got so much opportunity. So I reckon it's just going to be one of those shows that you're not going to know till the week of as to how many people have jumped in because posing workshops are going to be for the whole season. So you might have big numbers at posing workshops, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're all going to show up to the rookies. So
yeah,
and 6 weeks is a lot of time to continue to get in condition. Like,
yeah, and that's the thing. If you're looking at landing, like say I want my athlete to be ready at 100 for their show 1, and then I'm going to push all the way through to nationals. That's living like contest lean for 3.5 months. Like it's too long.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to pick your battles, and then you there's every chance that your physique's going to fade. It's so hard to be able to hold on to that and to not suffer any atrophy and also to just not want to hate life. Like being that shredded for that long, it's pretty miserable.
Unless you're Michael Trimboldi.
And just loves it.
To be honest, I don't have anyone in that show for those reasons.
Me too.
Firstly, their first timer shows. It's a rookie show. It's someone that's only competed a couple of times or not at all. And I generally don't want to put a rookie through dieting through the Christmas period, right? And also too is I like people doing more than one show, and it's just too far apart. So I've got majority of the team doing the later shows in season A, for that reason there. But I understand if someone only wants to do one show and they've got other commitments later in season A, and they can only really shoot for that one, then go ahead. I'd be interested to see the numbers. That's why I'm going. And also it's at a new venue too. So I'll be really interested to see what that venue's like so we can get our head around it. So when we go there, we know what we're doing.
Yep.
Yeah, but it'll be interesting. And then obviously you got your workshop coming up too, MG, don't you?
Yeah, so both March 11th, March 12th.
Yep.
The girls on Saturday and then the boys on Sunday with Maddie at same venue we had it last time out in Fairfield, which is an awesome venue. Me and you went there the other day actually to the other studio where it's just like dance studios, right? But like soundproof windows, mirrors all over the walls, square room as well. So like really easy to match presentation. So that'll be just the 2 workshops for season A, and then we'll actually run 2 in season B, 2 guys, 2 girls. So
yeah, cool. That'll be awesome.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So good. All right, we ready to jump into some questions?
Absolutely.
Let's start off with an easy one. Should you measure and track seasonings? Come on, boys.
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
Yep.
Yeah, it depends on what people are classing as seasonings too, right?
Tell us, which ones would you and which one wouldn't you?
So like Italian herb and spices.
So that's a popular one.
Yeah, I'm not tracking that. Nando's peri peri seasoning, I'm tracking that.
Yeah, so sauces, if we're talking sauces, yes, always.
Always.
If we're talking seasonings like, dried and you sprinkle on top, I'd say track everything because that's just the way I am. But if you really had to pick, you need to track the ones that actually have calories in them because you've got to see they actually do. And don't look at the serving calories, look at per 100 because it's what you use over a long period of time that makes all the difference, right? Because that's all adds up. And the next thing is tracking it from a sodium perspective, right? Because, we're all about tracking your electrolytes too, and sodium's a big important part. And if you're using a certain seasoning one week and you're using a different seasoning another week, which doesn't have any sodium in it because you decide to go for Italian herbs and spices, right? Or mixed herbs, it's going to make a difference, right? So it's there, track it. Now, people are going to say, well, how do I track it when I only sprinkle a bit, right? So the way you would do that, and even when you do that, if you're tracking your salts, is you weigh the shaker, the container, the bottle, whatever it is, at the start of the day, and then you weigh it again at the end of the day, and you note down the difference, right?
Yeah. And you can even get little salt scales that are a little bit more meticulous to the sensitivity of, obviously, of what you're actually weighing. So again, any serious
scales. And,
what's that? Sorry,
we call them the drug scales.
The drug scales, yes.
Yeah, because they're like micro scales. Yeah,
the micro scales. That's exactly right. That's what we use to track the sodium. That's right.
Yeah. So yeah,
that's the easy thing to do. Otherwise, you just weigh out whatever if your coach says, I want you to have 2,500 megs of sodium a day, which you work out to be, okay, that's 5 grams of salt, whatever it is. Then at the start of the day, weigh it out. There's your little pouch of salt, whatever you sprinkle on. Once the day is out, there's your salt/sodium intake. Like, it's really not that hard. But again, if we're talking about something that's coming in a packet and it has a nutritional representation on the back and it gives you the values and the intakes of what you're consuming, then why would you not track it?
Yeah, 100%. Yep. Yeah. That's one thing that I noticed in prep for myself is I swapped some seasonings out because I was like, there's a bit of cals in this one and it's pretty high in sodium. I'm going to swap this out for something different. So once you start to take notice, you'll you might change some of your habits for sure. Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right, got a question. What is a sumo and where do I get one?
A sumo?
Yeah.
Sumo.
I think they're meant to type suvo, but
oh, they actually said sumo. I thought you said sumo.
Let's address where do you find a sumo? Shimboli, please answer
sumo you would find in Japan. When I went to Japan in my past life, I was in a restaurant and I thought I was out of place because I was in a little small village and I walked in the only white guy, and then there was this one sumo in there. Beast, like massive dude, right? So yeah, if you're looking for a sumo, most likely in Japan.
And the actual backstory to that is the reason why Trimboli's never trained at a gym and why he's trained at home is because he wears the little sumo costume when he trains.
I wear the nappy.
He wears the nappy. That's why he doesn't go to public gyms, because it is pretty embarrassing. I've trained with him before. I wrap a towel around him every time he does the set. It's really awkward.
And it's a little overwhelming the first time you see it. I personally was.
Oh, bro, what about that time he did barbell RDLs? I mean, you were like, what the?
And remember the time it came off.
Yeah.
If you want to get serious for 1 sec, I've actually trained in my jocks before, right? For a reason.
That's why.
Because when I got tanned for my show, and you know this, Scotty, the tanning appointment, the show was on a Saturday, the tanning appointment was on a Friday, and I could only get one that was early in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to train that day. And you said for me to train later in the day after I had some food in me, right? So I literally had to go get a tan, came home, and then had to go train in my jocks because luckily it was at home, and I couldn't sit on any other benches or anything like that. So I did everything like standing per se, and in my jocks so I wouldn't sweat and the tan wouldn't run. So, yep, it happens, MG.
I'm not surprised.
It definitely happens. Here's another one for you. How do you break up with a client when the client is your mother-in-law? Now, I don't have a mother-in-law, so you guys can answer it, man.
Bro, that's hilarious.
How are you going to do it, MG?
I'm just thinking about my mother-in-law is so sweet. How could I ever break up with her as a client? She's too nice. My answer is you're not breaking up with your mother-in-law. You're done. You're set with her.
Yeah.
There's no way out of it. That's it.
Yeah. Or you're going to. That's extreme, but yeah.
You can't do it. The only thing you could do is you can say, hey, look, I just want to give you an added level of service. And I feel like just because we're so close, that maybe the accountability is not quite there. So I'm actually going to you have to have someone to replace. You can't just get rid of him. You've got to have a replacement ready to go. You're like, this person is actually going to take over. We've already chatted. They're really excited to coach you because they're actually just pretend like they're better. Just go, this coach is actually better than me. But I honestly think you're stuck with your mother-in-law.
I think you're right. Like there has to be a replacement, a next level up option.
Yeah, there's got to
Mhm.
be. There has to be. It's the only way out.
How do you do it, Scotty?
I don't know. To be honest, I don't think my mother-in-law would want to train with me. But I reckon I'd maybe just buy her an exercise bike or a treadmill and just tell her to just send. Actually, no, I think you're right. You just have to find someone else. You
Yeah, you
just
got to
have
find
to
someone else.
allocate her and maybe just make it that they don't have access to training high caliber athletes such as yourself. So you'd be
Yeah.
doing them a massive favor. I don't know.
So on
Pretty,
that
it's
point,
pretty challenging.
on that point, knowing that and knowing what you guys know, obviously you've been a coach for a while. Do you try to avoid coaching family, close friends, or even someone's best friend? Like if it's like, I don't know, your brother's best friend or something like that? Do you try to avoid coaching people that are super close?
Yeah, I'm pretty particular these days with who I will and won't work with, purely just from it wouldn't necessarily matter if they were a close friend. It's more like I've got mates that are like, oh, could you write me a nutrition or a training program? And I'm like, I'm not going to waste my time. Like they're
Mm,
the sort of people you have a drunk conversation with. They're drunk and you're sober. You're like, yeah, cool, man. I'll talk to you tomorrow, and they don't even
mhm,
remember. But
mhm.
if it was someone that you have a good relationship with and they want to take it serious, I think it just has to be established and it needs to be transparent very early that you just sort of have to have that line that like business is business and that your friendship is your friendship and you're keeping the two separate. And I think as long as the two don't cross from a professional service perspective. So it's like, oh, I've got MTs check-in today, but I'm a bit tired. I'll just send him a text and say, hey, bro, everything was good. I'll catch up with you next week. Then that's obviously not really good enough. So I think as
Yeah.
long as there's standards and there's expectations on both part and that's communicated, then I probably wouldn't really see that to be a problem. But I mean, in our circle, I think the people that will my closest sort of circle are all, most of them are pretty heavily involved within this sort of sport. I've got friends that aren't involved in bodybuilding, but they're more or less involved in some sort of sport or football. But yeah, I think that's probably the way that you would go about it. What about you guys?
Yeah,
Go ahead, Jeff.
I, I kind of a little bit from both, I suppose. Like anyone who's family of mine that trains at the gym, and same with me's family, will typically be coached by like one of the team. But like just like Charlie, for example, right? Best mates. I coach Charlie. Never misses a beat. Never misses a check-in. Every week the data's there, and the check-in is always done in exactly the same way. And then post all of that, the friendship continues. So I think you're spot on. Like we both know what the expectation is from that side of the relationship. That we both want the same outcome, right? I want to see him at his best. He wants to be his best. Um, but we can still manage a friendship around it. So I think it can be done, but it takes a certain type of personality
Mm, I agree.
on both ends, like from the
Yeah,
coach and also from the athlete.
yeah.
And it's also like how bad that person wants the goal. Like, obviously you guys know Charlie well, and he wants it bad. So it's very easy from that side of things. If it was someone who was like the data was average, it's only there every so often, you're always chasing, it would be very hard to maintain the friendship and be the
Yeah.
coach.
Yeah. I think my first um, initial inclination is to refer them on to someone else. Yeah. And yeah, you'd really have to convince me. Yeah. Because if they can find someone that's as good as me or better, then that's going to be better. It's going to be better for them, right?
Is this the pitch you're giving to your future mother-in-law? Is it?
But in saying that too, is you can have someone that starts off as a client and then becomes a good friend of yours. I think that's okay, and that's like Charlie and
Yeah.
so on,
Yeah.
which is fine. But then I've also had people that have come to me for coaching and have found it hard to break up with their coach, right? Because they've developed a friendship with them. And I always say to them, we're all professionals here, right? If that coach is professional and you have a conversation with them, they should treat it professionally, right? And it's nothing against them or your friendship with them. It's professional. If you're trying to achieve a goal that they can't help you obtain, then you need to go somewhere else to do it, right? So I've actually had a couple of those scenarios this year.
Yeah.
And I said, it's okay. Like, do the right thing by them, give them
Yeah.
plenty of time, plenty of notice, and they should act professionally.
Yeah. What about as a coach? Like, just dabble into that a little bit further as well. It's like, you ever had a consult with someone who's working with someone like, and everything that they've kind of achieved together up to that point has actually been pretty good. Like, you're like, geez, you guys got these decent results,
Yeah.
and you think potentially it's just someone who thinks the grass might be greener on the side, but there's not really anything additional in terms of what you might offer other than relationship. How do you approach that? What conversation do you have with that type of new client? Like, have you come across that before? Because I have.
Yeah, I always think, have they given that coach enough time and enough of opportunity to get you to where you need to be, right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes people will swap and change too early and not give it a chance.
Yeah.
I think the grass is always greener. So I've had that conversation, be like, you know what? You should stay with your coach. Stay with your coach for another season and see how you go.
Yeah.
Because I feel like they've done a good job from where you started to where you are now, and I think they deserve to have another opportunity or to continue with that, right? So I've definitely had those conversations with people. I've had conversations with people recently where they wanted to do comp prep, but they haven't really done a lot of training in the gym. And I was like, find a PT in your area, right? Because this person lived a bit far away. Do PT with them. Learn how to train first. Then when you're comfortable and you're ready, then come and talk to me. And those people have come back like 6 months later and said, I'm ready now. Okay, cool. No dramas. So sometimes as the coach who could potentially take on a new client, you need to not worry about the fact that you're getting a new client and maybe a bit more income. Do the right thing by people because they'll always come back. They'll always remember, oh, Michael gave me really good advice. I'll go back to him. Or I gave my other coach an opportunity. Now, the next person is going to be Michael or whatever that may be. So just try to do the right thing by people and put yourself in their shoes too.
Yeah.
Is that what you're thinking, MG?
Yeah, it's just like, there's, people who sometimes you have a catch up and you're like, maybe you've had one season and you started from, a position of say, not a crazy amount of muscle and body fat percentage, reasonably high. And you've actually gone through prep and got some really, really good results. And there's really nothing else you could have done in that one season together.
Yeah.
That, sometimes, maybe having another season is, I say like the right thing to do, because at the end of the day, if the relationship or if the personality side doesn't work, I reckon that's a different story.
Yeah.
But I think it's like, oh, well, I didn't win my pro card or win the overall in my first season. I need to get another coach.
Yeah.
And I just think that's not a good attitude to have. It's like, where did you start? Where did you get to? Objectively, if someone else looked at that, would they say, hey, that was a really, really good season? What do we know as coaches, right? The longer you work with someone, the more you start to understand. Like from peak 1 to peak 2, like, what type of nutrition systems you respond to, when you need breaks, whether you use cardio or not. Like there's so many things that you get better and better at over time.
Yeah.
And sometimes one go at it, isn't necessarily always going to be enough.
Yeah.
Because everyone's so different, genetically, metabolically, like, and it takes us time to kind of adapt to that as well, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So,
you know what? I kind of feel sorry for those coaches in a way, the ones where they build someone from ordinary to extraordinary, right? And then that person moves on and the next coach gets all the credit.
yeah.
And like we know how that shit happens, right? Because we know the coaches that have those clients. And whenever someone says to me, oh my God, have you seen that coach is amazing? I was like, go and have a look at their clients, right? And actually find out when they went to that person and who their coach was before that and the transformation they had then. That's the real person. That's the person that did all the fucking hard work. That person just did the cherry on top, which really any stupid coach could have done the cherry on top for someone that's already amazing. Yeah. We say that all the time. And people have built businesses on that. So that's all good. All right. Next one. Which ab or core exercise do you prescribe for fitness girls? But let's also talk bikini mod as well. But there's a difference, right? Because fitness, we want to see six-pack abs. Bikini, we don't, right? So how do you kind of tackle it, MG? Ab exercises for female athletes.
Yeah, so I do like I wouldn't even call it a day, but like a rest day protocol of like some stabilization and some strengthening core stuff. But if I had to pick like one exercises, probably leg raises is my kind of go-to. And I think we speak about like ab volume on an episode recently. I feel like we did about like the amount of sets per week that's
Maybe,
sort of required. But that would be my go-to if I had to pick one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How would you, if you had to pick multiple, you had to give them like a bunch of core exercises, how much emphasis would you have on it? And would it depend if they're bikini or not, or maybe fitness?
Yeah, so I would probably say like I would double the volume if it was fitness versus bikini, but I reckon bikini I still would utilize, probably 4 to 6 sets of like proper ab work per week, and then like a day of just like strengthening, stabilization type stuff, like bird dogs, planks, that type of stuff.
Yeah, I think there's kind of split them into two parts. One is like stabilizing exercises for like injury prevention, and also just general, core activation and holding your core in during poses because it's static holding, right? So that's like super important. And then the next is the visual aspect of the abs, right? So you met my client on Friday, bikini athlete, who has done way too many ab exercises and she's got six-pack popping out, right? I said to her,
insane six-pack. Like,
it's like, no more, no more ab exercises for you. Stop, right? So there's a level of development that someone may need, which would be the traditional ab exercises, the sit-ups, the crunches, the leg raises, all that kind of stuff. And then there's the injury prevention, stability / static holding for posing. I think those ones there are important regardless, and you'd probably have them always in a program. I think the ones that are more aesthetic would really depend on the individual. It's going to be more important in a fitness girl than a bikini athlete. But yeah, actually, so I went to the workshop on Sunday, and Slim Tum was there. The waist trainer dudes.
Yeah.
So I didn't realize that that's actually an Aussie product, and but you got all like Miss Olympia's wearing it, right? But it's an Aussie product. And I actually met the guy that owns it, super nerd, and we got along really, really well because he was talking about like the manufacturing process and how he made it. I was like, dude, I'm an ex-engineer, so I know what you're talking about. So then he just went like straight into like metallurgy and how they bend it and like, I was like, okay, cool. But anyways, I said to him, I said, do you believe in the product? Like, I get it, you're making it, but like, do you believe in the waist trainer? And he thought the same way I thought, which was he thinks that it may have a place for shrinking the area or shaping the area, but it's more about teaching people to keep things tight, right? And having the feeling of how the core needs to sit, especially when you're posing. And he said it's kind of useful if you wear it when you pose and you know how flat your abs should be, how you should stand up nice and straight, nice and tall, right? When you take it off, once you've been practicing with it so long, you kind of hold that position. So it's training you to hold a position. And that's the kind of what I feel about them too. It's training you to hold a position. Whether it actually shrinks and changes the size of your waist by the pressure of it, I think is probably debatable. But I think it's more about training you to hold a position is probably where I kind of see where it could potentially work. And if you have the money and you want to try, then go ahead. Do I think it's 100% necessary and you should waste your money on it? Debatable. What about you guys? What about you, Scotty? Because I know you probably like to get in the weeds about that kind of stuff and all the fancy new stuff that comes out on the market.
If you want to, I personally think it's kind of a waste of money, but I get what you're saying in terms of you adapting and acclimating to wearing it and learning to breathe and to pose while staying tight. Because one of the biggest issues with people, and this is why I make all of my athletes undertake posing conditioning weeks and weeks out, because if you're in a tough lineup and the judges make you work, after like one round of quarter turns, you can tell who's practicing and who hasn't. As soon as you start, especially with the guys, you see some distension, breathing's really bad, they lose tightness through the midsection, versus if you're wearing this thing all day, every day, then, I mean, I've never worn one of those corsets, so I can't give any.
I chucked one on. Yeah.
Did you? Okay, so I can't give feedback, but
Yeah.
but I would presume that it would be very uncomfortable at first, as you're just being sucked in all day. But then, if you were trying to breathe and stay sucked in whilst you're on stage, then there would be some form of adaptation that would allow you to be able to do that at a better level. But the alternative to that, you could probably elicit the same result by just practicing your posing, controlling your breathing, getting super shredded. Everyone thinks like you got to flex your abs so hard when you're on stage. If you're truly shredded, like you don't really need to tense or flex through the midsection at all. If you're posing right and you create those illusions, like your physique will show itself off, anyway, unless obviously it's an abs and thighs pose. So I think if you're new to the game, you're better off spending that money towards something that's perhaps going to give you a bit more, towards getting a better coach, or towards perhaps some enhanced recovery, or being able to, spend money to buy better quality produce, food, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Rather than buying a corset. What do they retail for, out of curiosity?
About $100, 100.
Okay, so they're not that expensive.
Yeah. And I think the naming of it is correct. It's a waist trainer because it trains you to do something. If it was called like a waist shrinker or a waist contour or something, then I'd be like, fuck that. I think it's more because I put it on and it was a female one because I don't have male ones, even though they said that males wear those ones. I put it on, yes, immediately it makes me stand up tall. Immediately it makes me pull my waist in. I was like, cool, I get it, it makes sense. But he was saying to me they're going to bring a male specific one out because with the female one, the way it's shaped is like an hourglass, right? It's like comes in the middle and it comes back out, right? Whereas with the guys, you don't want an hourglass per se, you want like a V, right? So the way they're going to create their ones is more like a V shape for the guys. So it comes down, 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 down. Whereas the females, it comes in the middle, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
So I said to him, I go, as soon as you have that one out and ready, just let me know because I'll definitely give it a shot and try it out. So you're walking around with my waist trainer, bro. You want to be seen with me while I got my waist trainer?
Man, between that and the sumo outfit, I'll tell you what, you know what? All I can think about is Trimboli in a lace corset because Scott keeps saying corset, and I'm just picturing like, big voluptuous boobs and like tied up at the back Trimboli walking around.
That's what I'm thinking about. On those movies where the what are they called? Like the old school like cowboy movies where girls get sucked in, like the girl wears on Titanic.
Yeah, that's what I want to see. MT training in that. That's
Well, they said you can use it for training, so when I put it on, he's like, I don't know, like bend over like you're doing an RDL. And I did that and it flexes, right? It flexes. So you wouldn't use it as a weight belt. Like, it's not going to, it may hold you tight, but I wouldn't rely on it for someone that lifts heavy. If you're doing heavy squats and like, I wouldn't go, yeah, my waist trainer is going to do the job for me. It's not, but I get it if someone trains at the gym with it just to have it on for a longer period of time throughout the day.
Yeah.
I get that. But, interesting. And there's some people in my team that have them. And
just a shout out to Timsy, our unofficial graphic designer. Next photo, Trimboli in a corset for our next ad that we do.
Hey, if I'm going to wear it, right, and for my comp, and I'm going to praise that. I'm not going to praise you, Scotty, for getting me shreds. I'm going to slim tongue.
That's fair. You know what? And then everyone will just say the waistcoat plays or whatever it's called, the waist trainer.
Yeah, it's like, hey, who coached you for the comp? Waist trainer.
Yeah, slim tongue. Yeah.
So
they could sponsor you. You could say, I'm Michael Trimboli and I endorse the waist trainer. And then they'll just have an up close, just slow-mo video of just those washboard abs.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
it's done.
So if I wear it, can I eat as many Pop Tarts as I want?
Of course you can. Of course.
Yeah, you don't need to diet at all, bro. You just wear that and you turn up, put some tan on.
That's the best.
All right. What is a typical glute and ham day?
I could bring one up on the screen. I literally just before we logged on there, I had one up on the screen.
Go talk us through it.
So, oh no, I was going to say half the people can't see it.
Don't
I'm not. But I'm going to bring it up. I'm going to bring it up for myself because no one can. Cool. I'm literally going to talk you through one right now, right?
Okay, cool.
So, I would have two. I'm just going to assume it's like female.
Yep.
Say bikini sports, something in that vicinity, right?
Yep.
So I would have 2 leg days, right? One that I would say is like glute ham focused, one that is like quad glute focused as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to read it to you from the program itself. No surprises. All right. Barbell RDLs.
Yep.
And I'll give you an idea. I mean, the volume of this person is not really relevant to anyone else because it's just relevant to this athlete's current position. But barbell RDLs, 3 sets, 10 reps, 8 to 10 reps.
Mm-hmm.
From there, we move to, this is a growth phase, by the way. This is a growth phase. From there, we move to barbell hip thrust, this block we're doing 4 sets of 8 to 10 reps.
Mm-hmm.
Then we move to seated hamstring curls, 4x12. Then we do single leg press, 3x12 per leg. From there, we move to a double leg press, 2 sets, 10 to 12 reps.
Mm-hmm.
Glute ham raise, 4 sets, 12 reps with pause. And then I have on this person's program 2x20 of adduction/abduction machine superset.
Okay. Cool. So it's got a bit of quad in it too. So it's glute ham and quad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just through the leg press.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
So,
And then what's the other day look like?
so the other day will be like far more squat based.
Yep.
With obviously leg extensions in there. So again, I'll read it out to you, give you an idea. So we actually start with a higher rep leg press. From there, we do 3 sets. So we do 2 sets of 10, and then we have a back off set where we pull the weight back and we do up to 20 reps.
Mm-hmm.
Hack squat 4x8, leg extension 4x12.
So leg press, then a hack squat.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. Leg press, then hack squat second, leg extension 4x12, then Bulgarian split squats, 2 sets at the moment, 2x12 per leg. And then we're just trying to bring up the lower part of the quad for this athlete. So we've got some heel elevated Smith squats, full range of motion. Some leg press calf raises in there as well. And on this day, we do adductions again, just because we're a little weak in the adductor here.
So with that Bulgarian split squat, would that be a shorter stance to bias quad or a length?
No, much shorter stance.
Okay.
Much shorter stance, yeah.
So you're looking for knee over toe.
Not glute,
definitely, yeah. And we also like for this athlete, so I don't know, Scott, I know what you do, MT. So I use one dumbbell in a split squat on the leg that's up on the bench.
Okay.
For stabilization with a closer stance and potentially a little bit of assistance maybe with a dowel pole or something if needed.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So, yeah, that's a good point. So when you're doing lunges, even step-ups, what do you use? 2 dumbbells, 1 dumbbell, a bar, a Smith machine, wherever that may be. Even if you're doing single-legged deads, like so it can be ham movements or quad movements. I think it really, not really, but I think one of the factors is going to be how strong that person is, right? So if they're going to carry some heavy-ass dumbbells and it's 1 dumbbell, it's going to be a big dumbbell, right? They're super strong, right? So you either carry 1 20-kilo dumbbell or 2 10s, right? Or if they're fatigued and it's comp prep and it's like deep in prep, I'd say chuck a bar on your back or use a Smith machine, because the last thing they want to do is hold some fucking dumbbells in their hands. They'd rather put on their back. And I know that's how I was in my prep. I was like, fuck holding these dumbbells, or I'll put the bar on my back and do a lunge, right? So I think that's going to be one of the bigger factors. Now, say that wasn't a factor, then yeah, there is a reason why you would have a dumbbell in one hand to counterbalance or to force the glutes to work a little bit harder to stabilize because you're off balance with the dumbbell in one hand only. So there's like method to madness there. Or if they're not very good at their balance, you might give them 2 dumbbells and then they'll really pass that dumbbell over the balancing leg, right? So they really center themselves over that balancing leg. Or if they're really, really bad with their balance, then you give them a Smith machine or holding onto a dowel pole or a pole or something like that. But that's probably the first thing I think about is how strong are they? And is holding onto a dumbbell going to be their limiting factor, or how fatigued are they going to be at that point in time? And then make a selection there.
Yeah, I would agree. I would say like there's definitely like I don't think there's a best way for it. just depends on the athlete. Like this person's in like peak off season right now, and won't be limited by holding that dumbbell. But you can see that we've got other movements in there that allow for greater load, like a Smith squat and things like that. So, and you notice that this person is not currently doing barbell squats. So again, and not doing conventional deads either.
Because you don't want to thicken the waist, bro. That's why.
Well, we haven't bought the Slim Tum yet. So until I buy it, I don't want that risk, man. It's just.
So if you have a Slim Tum, you're allowed to do squats and deads?
Right, it'll keep of course, you're not going to blow the waist up at all, man. But you still can't work to like, you can't go to like 1 or 2 reps in the tank. You've still got to leave 4 to 5. Otherwise, your waist will get massive, man.
Massively thick.
You know, deadlifts actually grow the pelvis, the bone. Fact.
Oh, fuck, I love it.
Just for anyone anyone's just new listeners, we are just shit stirring.
We're shit stirring. We're definitely
Please.
shit stirring.
Don't stop deadlifting.
Anything on that, Scotty? Glute and Ham Day? Anything you want to add?
No, not really. I think it depends on the
Scotty's
person.
having a belt squat because he's fucking got one in his gym.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the belt squat and even the V squat. I love the V squat. I used to be very like, I've always loved, sticking a heavy bar on your back and squatting heavy. But I think the older you get, perhaps the further you go in this game, it's more like I just view every exercise as a tool. And so at what stage do you need to use which tool? But I'm a big fan, especially now that I have a Smith in my gym. I'm a big fan of that with a lot of the unilateral based movements, or if you're looking at, say, a split squat type variation movement, just because it takes a lot of the neural stress that comes with, like, say you're deep in prep and you've got to hold heavy dumbbells versus if you've got a Smith, like it takes that balance out of it and allows you to focus on biasing stress where you want it to go. And obviously there's the no-brainer that you'll usually be able to load up a little bit more. So again, you can distribute more load to the targeted tissue. But I think the biggest thing is with volume, not going crazy early on, like especially with young athletes, most of the time they'll be like, if I start working with someone that's younger, I feel like it's not really that much volume. And I'm a big advocate that you want to be able to get the most out of what you can from doing the very bare minimum. Because if you just start throwing tons and tons and tons of volume, and I think it's perhaps a younger generation thing because they see all of these IFBB guys that are doing like 30 different, sets or exercises. But I think it's just, what amount of volume do you need at each specific time? And given the specific phase of training that you're in. But typically for a glute ham day, or if it was a quad glute day, you're typically going to have one big major compound, which is typically going to be a heavier work. It might be 2 sets, max, it might be 3. And then you might have something that's a little bit less neurally taxing. It could be an adduction machine, or it could be a seated or a lying hamstring curl, whatever it may be. And then similar with your glutes, it depends how you want to hit it and what area of the glute you're trying to bias, some variation of your hip thrust. And it also depends on the individual's physique. If you've got someone that's got crazy good glutes, but they're lacking in their hamstrings, then they might have a glute hamstring session. They might only have 4 sets of glutes and they may have 10 to 12 sets of hamstrings because that's where the volume needs to go.
For sure. Yeah. But like, I think if you see from that day, if anyone like did any calculations while I was talking, that program for that specific athlete would start somewhere like around the 20 sets mark and potentially build up as high as maybe 25, 26 at the peak of the block before a change in program. So
I pretty much the same as you boys, and I'm just like what you said, Scotty, about different areas of the glutes. So I'm really focused on that too, making sure that the glute exercises, there's all different types to target all the different areas, and giving enough volume for all those areas too, and depending on what that person needs to build up. Like for instance, there may be someone in their front pose, right, they have good glute projection, right? So from the side on, the glute has a good projection, but then in their back pose, they don't have good width in their glutes, right? From the back, like there's not that peach, right? That roundness from the back. So therefore you'd have to add in abductions, right? A lot more abductions than you would a kickback or a glute hyperextension or a thrust, right? There'd be a lot of abduction work. So Sometimes assessing the physique and knowing what it needs more of and less of is important, especially because glutes are such a big focus too for females.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah.
But
So
And
again,
it's
I think
important for females to remember as well that if you want to grow glutes, a big part of it, yes, is the training, but you've also got to fuel your body. So you need to have that time and be willing, like, I want to stay lean, but I want big glutes. Well,
mhm.
which one do you want to have more? Like,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that's why we speak about the importance of utilizing that improvement season, having enough energy on board so that you can actually accrue new tissue
yeah,
and I
and
think
expose that tissue to a greater stimulus.
yeah. We we got a question which we'll quickly touch on. It kind of to do with what we're talking. If you have a difference in your quad size, this person had an injury, and fixing that. I think we kind of touched on it a bit. It's got to do a lot to do with like unilateral movements. Obviously, if there's an instability there, you might not want to do things that require. Um, I'd probably say like if I was to choose between a barbell squat or a hack squat, where it's more stable, you can put your pressure through the floor more equally, or know how much pressure you're putting through the floor, and be more um, aware of that. I'd probably
yeah,
get that person to do more of those kind of movements too before they go something a bit more complicated like a barbell squat. But I think a lot of single leg movements is going to be important too, and even single leg isolation movements.
yeah,
And
Yeah.
always train the weaker leg first, and always train the more dominant leg to whatever the weaker leg can do, so you don't
yeah,
just continue to create a discrepancy.
And if you are coming off a serious type of injury, like say ACL, PCL, like I've had lots of my athletes, not just physique athletes, but footballers, basketballers, and whatnot, that have had injuries like that. It's important that your coach, if you're working with someone, is liaising with the allied practitioner. So, for example, I work a lot with Ben Lustig. I know MG, you're working with Benny as well now. So that if you have someone, for example, say that they've had knee surgery, they're not just going to come back and then just jump straight into bilateral movements, because you need to attenuate the difference in not only atrophy, but also in strength and stability around that weakened leg. So unfortunately, it's going to mean that you're going to lose size on both limbs, but you need to rebuild that one side so that when the time comes and you have got, equal strength, power, stability on both limbs, that then you can return to bilateral. And what I mean by bilateral, so for example, say a hack squat or a movement where both feet are on the ground versus doing something that's a single leg hip thrust or a single leg press or a single leg extension, single leg hand curl, things like that. And sometimes it means that you just have to take a little bit more of a patient route, but it's so much better to do it and to do it right the first time, save money, than you get too excited, you come back and in your head perhaps it's not quite right. And this is something that everyone's guilty of from time to time. You may even have a little niggle on one side and you're like, oh, I'll just push through it, where you probably need to weigh up, is it better if I just shut that down, give it a couple of days, and then obviously pick up where I left off a few days later?
Yeah. Comp prep question. I think it's a peaking question. Um, I'm not going to read it the way it's written. I'm going to read it how I interpret it, because I think it's probably easier to understand it. So the difference between depleting someone, then carbing them up, right? Or actually feeding them into a show. So having more of a higher carb approach, like a week or two out and just feeding them in, or doing a depletion, then an up. Maybe Scotty, you want to talk about, is there a difference? Is one better than the other?
I think if you're feeding in to the show, then obviously this athlete's 110% ready to rock. So, and if that is the case, then I wouldn't be sucking them down to a deficit if they're like shredded, glutes are in 100%, because your risk of losing tissue is going to be pretty high. But I think it would depend as well on, obviously, as the training week goes on. And so say, for example, it's Monday, for me, if you're still training with relative intensity up until, say, about Wednesday, then there's no issues having a bit more food in. But you also want to factor in that you want to try and minimize how much food is going in, perhaps at least 24 hours out from a distension perspective. For example, how much food's in the gastrointestinal tract. so that you're nice and flat and you're not uncomfortable and feel like you need a big bowel movement on stage. But I think it would just depend if the athlete's ready. If you've got someone who's 110%, which it's pretty rare that you'll have someone that couldn't use a little bit more refinement, then there'd be nothing wrong with you doing that. And then essentially muscle glycogen stores are topped up all the way through. I guess the only thing with that is, are they going to be able to hold that look for 2 weeks, in terms of you might have a day where they just, because of that carbohydrate, they just start to look a little bit watery or spilled, versus sometimes when you suck someone down, you flatten them out, you know where their bottom end is. And typically if you've got someone who's 99% ready, you know that if you pull them down for, say, even if it's just a day, if I want to peak them for a Saturday and I run a low day on a Tuesday, and then I'm just slowly putting a little bit more food in up until I get to the point by, say, like a Thursday where I'm like, yep, we're at the limit. And then I can pull back on the Friday because I know that expenditure is going to be very, very low. And again, all that muscle glycogen is still there. All we need to do is just to turn on the switch, and then boom, we're ready to go. But in 95% of cases, I would say, most athletes, it's pretty rare that someone's just 100% ready like 2 weeks out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I think do you think there was really this old school sort of mentality and methodology of like, you just deplete and then you carb up? But I think that mindset's wrong. I think if you're ready and genuinely ready, like Scotty's talking about, you're depleted enough. So you don't then need to try and deplete more just because it's what was always done. Feeding yourself up into the show is always going to be like the better outcome. And I think it was just something that was always done, right? It's like, and a lot of these methodologies came from guys who, were probably using some pharmacology as well, where retaining muscle tissue was a little bit easier than, say, a natural athlete who continue to push themselves down that hole. The likelihood of chewing tissue becomes higher and higher. So I think if you're genuinely ready 2 to 3 weeks out, like Scott's saying, you are depleted. You're ready to start feeding up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go. There you go.
Say, if we were trying to reduce as many factors as possible and say, okay, 2 weeks out, there's two people, you're identical, right? They're the exact same body fat level, they look exactly the same, everything's identical, right? One, you're going to feed now into the show, and one you're going to deplete, then carb up. The end result is still the same body fat level. The end result is on stage, right? But the level of fullness might be different because one's going to feed in, one's going to deplete and carb up. Which one do you think would have a better fullness on the day?
I think one carries a lot more risk of getting right.
Okay.
Yeah, I think like when you're slowly feeding in, right, the ability to assess as you go and make changes becomes a lot easier than running straight down to 0 and then trying to get back up to 100. I would rather run it 50, 60, 70, 75, 80, rather than trying to go from 0 to 100 in 2 to 3 days. So I think choosing the feed up option is the better option. And I think that's why most of us try and have an athlete who is ready 2 to 3 weeks out.
I think as well, it's important to understand that it's a moving target. So it's very common with 2 weeks to go, your maintenance calories might be, I don't know, say that to be able to just maintain weight, it's 2,800 calories, right? And so you know that if you eat 2,800 calories, you're eating the same foods, fluids the same, training's the same. And again, you're not training super, super hard, say a week out, so that you're not going to have any inflammation. Your sleep is the same. All of those things, in a perfect world, that's what happens. But I can tell you, and you guys can attest to this as well, when you're super shredded, your sleep isn't 100% perfect. You could do everything normal, but you just wake up and it's like, fucking hell, why am I so stressed today? Or why does my physique just look like it's faded? It can be very hit and miss unless you're just literally every single element of your day is exactly the same. But it's really rare that in this day and age that is going to be able to happen. And then not just that, once you achieve that level of conditioning, the risk of things changing within a 24-hour, even on an hour-by-hour basis, it's very, very high because your body doesn't want to be at the level of body composition that you have it at. So there is a risk of, for example, like we said, if you're super ready at 2 weeks out, you don't want to be spending any time at least 2 weeks out in a deficit You just want to be able to maintain body weight. Potentially, if you know that you want to run a couple of low days at the start of the week, you maybe even push in a little bit more food, say on Friday and the Saturday, then you might go low Sunday, Monday. And when I say low, you might pull down to, if your maintenance is at 2,800, you might suck down to, I don't know, 2,200, right? For 2 days. And all that that's really doing is potentially taking out some of that muscle glycogen. And then as the week is going on, you're getting a look every single day. How is the physique? Am I filling up? Yep, I'm filling up. But it's pretty rare that it'll just go exactly as you want it to be. Mm-hmm. And if I use myself as an example, I had one of the longest preps ever in 2020. When I was a couple of days out, what we had planned for what I was going to need to have from a food perspective was nowhere near enough. Even though I was like super relaxed, I was doing the very bare minimum, my body just was so sucked down that I was having to push in more and more. So I think a couple of days out, it was like I was going to go 550, then maybe 650, and then pull back to 400. And I think I had to go to like 800 and then like 850, and then I pulled back to 500. And then even the night before I went to bed, I was like, I'm starting to flatten out, and I had to push in more food as well so that I didn't have to take on as much the morning of. Now, all of those things were trialed and tested like 2-3 weeks earlier, but things change because when you're at that level of composition, again, bearing in mind that from a physiological perspective, your body does not want you to be at that state.
Yep.
So I think the easiest, most conservative thing would be if you're 2 weeks out, the second last week, you're just sitting at maintenance. And then I think it doesn't hurt to have maybe 1, maybe 2 lower days, and then you're just gradually bringing food back up. But if you feel that if you do that, your physique just, it doesn't respond in a positive way, again, this is where it needs to be bespoke to the individual. If you're better, if I've got MT and I know if I drop his food back, it's way too hard to bring him back, then I'd say, well, all right, we'll go, we might have a 2,600 day on a Monday, and then we'll go 2,800 on Tuesday, assess the response, assess the look, see where our scale weight is, and then we use that as a proxy. But you would also know from a week earlier what physique around the same sort of scale weight. So if I know he wakes up at 75 kilos, 75.2, and that was like the most ridiculous look in the morning, and then when he trained later that day, the look was even better, then I'm like, all right, sweet. I know that roughly what we've done in that 3-4 days prior to that is kind of what we need to replicate. But he might wake up looking awesome, but then when he goes to train, he's just flat as a tack.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we're all on the same page, to be honest. I would like if you want to call it feeding in, which may require a little bit of a dip and a little bit of a rise on the way in, then a deplete and load, because there's more things that can go wrong.
Yeah.
And also too, even if you get it right from a fullness perspective, just trying to digest that amount of food that potentially you may need to shovel in may be at a detriment to that athlete. And I think from a stress standpoint of that athlete hoping to God the coach knows what the fuck they're doing and they're going to peak them correctly, is going to be a lot more of a high stressful situation than if a client is like, I'm ready right now, and we're not going to do anything extreme from now until the show because I'm already looking awesome. And I think that would, and also too is, if you don't go through those big waves and big changes, it's a little bit easier for the athlete to know what they're doing on a daily basis. And also it won't affect them, their sleep, their stress, their energy, because there's no real big changes. That makes sense. And then even if you talk about like from a logistics perspective, their food plot doesn't change that much, so they're not having to like prep different things all the time, and it's just more like a coasting into the show than to be like, holy shit, we're going to do this and then we're going to come back up and let's hope that we end up on top by the end of it. A lot more things can go wrong, for sure. Yeah, for no good reason. If you're already ready, and it's the two scenarios where they're ready, both the guys are ready, one's going to do a deplete and carb and one's going to do a coast in. Yeah, for sure. Okay, boys, I think we're about time. It's gone fast.
It has gone fast.
Mm.
All that talk about corsets and bloody sumo nappies, fucking solving the problems of the world we are. I tell you what.
Yeah, there's more questions, but I reckon we've done them well. I reckon we've done them good. I reckon we're good.
Good
Um,
catch up.
That was good potty, boys.
Yeah,
I
keep
enjoyed it.
sending your questions through, everyone. Thanks for listening, but keep sending the questions through. We will
Yeah.
address everything.
I'm
I
guessing
hope
that over the next
everyone
few
liked.
weeks, as we get closer to a show, there's going to be a few more peak week kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I look forward to when shows get closer, people start to ask more peak weeky questions. So we
And
love this
guys,
stuff.
at the Season A shows, can confirm we will be in our prep coach jumpers, not our team merch. We are opting for the prep coach jumpers.
Yeah, we're going to have some prep coach merch on. So
Mhm.
MG and I will definitely be wearing those, so you'll be able to spot us for
At the
sure.
rookies, yeah.
And I know you guys saw it, the show list. I released the
Yeah,
show
that was
list.
awesome,
Yeah, that
man.
was
Well
sick,
done on
bro.
doing that. You're a legend, man.
Yeah,
That's gonna help so many people. That's gonna help the whole country, man.
yeah,
Anyone who's like literally anyone who's in this industry should have that list.
yeah.
And you
So
put it together, man. What an effort, seriously. And it's so accessible for everybody.
yeah, so share it around. If anyone thinks it's going to be useful to someone, share it around, share it to your coaches, share it to other competitors. And I'll keep that list up to date as shows change, get added, and things like that. So
Have you, just out of curiosity, have you circled how many of the shows on the whole list you reckon you're going to be attending this year?
That's a good one.
I'll be attending most of the Vic shows for sure. If there's any interstate shows that don't clash with a Vic show, I'll try to go
Mm-hmm.
to also if I've got clients doing them, or I think they're a bit like, for instance, end of the year is the AMB Nationals with the world titles, and I'll definitely be going to that. So that's in Sydney, and so it'll be MG and I doing a little bit of a boys trip.
Oh
I'm
man.
spewing. I'm going to miss that.
I know. But actually, that list, Scotty, that should have helped you out to decide what you're doing because if all the shows are in there and all the shows, you can see what clashes and what works for you too. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Except that they still some of the pro shows haven't been like that. There was potentially an ACT one, and the WA one hasn't been listed yet.
Yeah, I've got no idea about those ones there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think I don't expect I'll hear anything until probably like, I don't know, mid-March or something.
Yeah, but at least that list now gives you a good indication of which ones clash and which ones you can do.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Hey, did Stu, that NBA one, is that definitely locked or not? Because weren't
Yeah,
they going to? Oh, so that's definitely locked.
it's all locked in. Yeah,
I
everything
thought
else.
it was like that was still pending with the IFBB.
No, he reviewed everything that I sent that I had in the list, and he said it's good. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, he said it's good. Um, the only ones IFBB, some of the different states aren't locked in yet, so I made an assumption based on what it was the previous year. But I know the Vic date is correct. I think the Queensland date is correct. And some of the other dates are correct. You'll see because some of them are highlighted in grey, meaning I'm not too sure, and the other ones that aren't means I'm 100% certain that's when it's locked in.
Yeah, awesome, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Did
yeah.
you posted that, didn't you?
Yeah, it's on our he put in the
It's in
bio.
the bio for Prep Coach bio. It's there. So you can take a look at it.
Yeah, mad. I'll definitely I'm just trying to
That's
see if
awesome.
you had the pro show and I'll have a look at that up there. Okay, cool.
All right, boys.
Sick,
Good
bro.
potty. We
Thanks,
will
legends.
Boys.
catch up soon.
Friday Suves, yeah?
Yeah, Friday
Right on.
suits. Be there, brother.
Looking forward to it,
See you
man.
guys.
Legends.
See you,
Thanks,
boys.
MT. Thanks, Scotty. See you, boys.
Boys.